research project will be based on democracies, more specifically within the United States and Norway. I chose these two democracies because the United States used to be a more glamorized version of democracy, which has since gone downhill, and Norway is perceived as one of the best examples of what democracy should look like within the modern age. And within my research, I will be focusing on how each government is run and which social welfare programs are implemented within these two countries. I will also be keeping in mind the differences between the demographics of population and population size within these countries. And I will also be able to identify what does not work within the United States and possibly suggest some aspects that could be used that are taken from Norway's democracy. The United States democracy, you can see that they use a presidential democracy where the citizens elect both the legislative and the executive branches, which causes more of an uneven balance of power, as that brings a lot of power to just one group of people. And you can also see that there is popular sovereignty within the United States, with elected officials gaining all the political power, which seems a little unsafe in my point of view, when I think it should rather be on individual freedoms and rights, which can be seen a tiny bit in the liberal democracy that's presented in the United States. And when looking back at what structures are implemented within the United States, I can tell that people mainly go into the government for political power. They don't go for the better of the people. They just want to have the most power within their country. During my research of looking at the social welfare programs within the United States, I noticed that majority of them focused on the collective group than it did more on the individual issues that are happening within the United States, such as one of the programs that I found was temporary assistance for needy families, which helps provide income for families in the poverty line. And this seemed like a good thing as it helped over 2 million families last year. But if you keep in mind that the population size of July 1st, 2019, there were 328.5 million Americans, which makes that program seem like it's not helping as many families as it should. And this causes an issue within the United States because when these families don't get the help that they need, this causes more families to continue to stay in the poverty line and more issues to happen throughout the democracy. For Norway's democracy, it's more of a parliamentary democracy, so the citizens elect the legislative, but the legislative elects the executive branch, which creates more of a balance of power between the political parties, as there are multiple parties, not just two, which brings more viewpoints and issues to the political and powerful positions. And this also creates a peaceful transfer of power, so there's no argumenting when someone enters and leaves office. And when looking at this, you can see that no one is aggressively aiming for power, but more in the stance of that if someone gets a powerful position, they're doing it for the better of the people in the country. When looking at Norway's social welfare programs, you can see that the organizations and the benefits were created for the better of the people in the country, such as the parental benefits through a job. So when a couple becomes parents, they have the choice of either taking 49 weeks with 100% coverage or 59 weeks with 80% coverage of their job. And this creates a safe environment for people to have children and to be able to put that position on pause, to feel comfortable to raise that child and then be able to jump back into the workplace once they're done. And keeping in mind that the demographic population size of Norway is about 5.5 million people, cares to show that they are willing to grow their population. The United States government needs to pay close attention to Norway's democracy, as there are some aspects that could possibly positively change the United States democracy for the better, such as I would suggest changing from presidential democracy to semi-presidential, so there's a separation of powers, because when one person has that much political power, it can be scary in a sense because you don't know what they're going to do with it. I would also put more emphasis on individual rights and put them in more average size groups instead of the large ones that there are today, so it could be easier to handle and figure out these issues within the United States. Now, I find these some of the base issues within a democracy, and once these baseline issues are solved, then the smaller issues within the democracy should be easier to figure out.